Welcome to the Two Stewards Show. There's a new product on the market called the Social Mobility Scooter. These pieces of highly advanced technology are spiking in popularity, particularly in Canada, where opportunities for upward social mobility are extremely rare and limited. No matter your socioeconomic background, as you mount one of these new social mobility scooters, all your problems and anxieties vanish. You can feel the wind in your hair as you breeze through the classes and gain status amongst your peers and friends. Segregation, be it residential, educational, or racial, is a thing of the past. The latest model can support an immense weight of not only your body, but also the burden of poverty, bad education, and any outstanding debts you may have. They are claimed to be able to take you anywhere. Not only can they traverse geographic boundaries, they can improve your friendships, your marriage, they can even climb corporate and social ladders. And if you can stomach the bill for the AI upgrades, your behavior, speech patterns, and clothing choices will be automatically associated with higher status groups. The cost is only your freedom, your privacy, your firstborn, and your complete submission to any government policy that will be used to pave the roads that these miniature social mobility scooters will drive on. Today, we're exploring a future that might not be as distant as we think, a Canada where upward social mobility is no longer the norm, and disruptions challenge our very way of life. To get in touch with the show, visit twostewards.ca. Remember, this show is not financial advice, but is valuable for listening amusement purposes. Now, the latest invention that is rocking our world.
Today, we're going to be looking at a couple of reports that have been released, well, one recently and one not so recently, by Policy Horizons Canada. Are we? We're disrupting the future.
We're going to the future, Mark.
Back to the future. So the first one, and it's just the reason we're looking at these is because they are they're timely, I guess. So the first one is Future Lives, Social Mobility in Question. And it just brings up a lot of things that we have been talking about on the podcast and ruminating about. And then it's also getting a little bit of press since it came out. So this is Policy Horizons Canada is a government, what you want to call them, a think tank or organization of some kind. And it's their job
let's just say they always have a lot of problems to write about.
especially lately, right? Anyways, their job is sort of foresight.
They're not letting anybody go.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see this come out. It's a little bit refreshing. I don't necessarily agree with all their conclusions, but from the actual government of Canada, they're acknowledging issues in the system. So, again, this is called Future Lives, Social Mobility in Question. If you want to read it, it's at, you can just Google Policy Horizons Canada, and they got a lot of stuff out there. But one of the headings is More Snakes Than Ladders. So what they're doing is they're taking a look at Canada, a hypothetical situation in Canada in 2040. And, everything they say is it's hypothetical, this could be, but obviously they've got all this stuff and a lot of detail for a reason, right? So I would take it as this could be if current trends continue. So.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a relatively bleak picture that they paint, right? There doesn't seem to be a lot of positive things that they're talking about, and maybe that's their job with this, but from what I understand, like this is trying to inform policy, right? So
yes.
Who the general public can read this, but the idea also is that government policymakers can read this report and incorporate some of these things into their policy writing and decisions. So bleak future, man. And to go on that bleak future, I pumped into ChatGPT for a sec in the words of George Orwell.
Oh, really?
The notion of climbing the social ladder in Canada has become quaint, a relic from a more naive century. The dream that one might rise by merit or labor is not dead. It has simply been discarded, like so many other broken illusions. In its place, A quiet dread.
Wow.
Oh yeah, just
Okay, so let me read their...
Paints a picture of no social mobility.
Yeah, which is interesting, right? Like, what is social mobility? But here, I'll just read quickly the introduction of the article. Social mobility lies at the heart of the Canadian project. Whatever the Canadian project is. Many people in Canada assume that following the rules, in parentheses, and doing the right things, in parentheses, will lead to a better life. Anyone can get an education, work hard, buy property, and climb the social and economic ladder. This is an informal but powerful promise. However, things are changing. And then they launch into stuff there. So, things are changing. So I don't know... I understand the economic ladder and economic mobility. Social mobility, I don't know, what does that mean? But maybe we should look at a couple of the things they're talking about here. So one is post-secondary education. And,
is that still relevant these days?
Well, I've been ragging on it for a while, right? Like, just go learn a trade. Don't go get the woke mind virus at university.
Maybe they listen to this show to kind of inform their report here, because I did see it linked in the footnotes at the bottom.
It's possible. And this is all, in 2040, this is what could happen. So it says, in 2040, pursuing post-secondary education is no longer considered a reliable path to social mobility.
And just to keep in mind, like 2040's what, 16 years, 15 years away. So
I don't know. I didn't do the post-secondary education, so couldn't do the math for
you. But that's not a distant future thing either, right? That's
no.
We're all going to be alive, Lord willing. Maybe Mark, maybe, I don't know.
We'll see. This is less than a generation, right? So, I mean, this is the age that are like your kids, exactly. My kids are right in there where you come to post-secondary education. But it's interesting because there is this thought right now already among certain groups of people that, post-secondary education is not, it's just not worth it, right? I've heard it. I think you've heard it. I've even said it. So, one of the things is tuition and housing costs exclude all but the wealthy. So, that makes sense. I mean, it's already at that point, I think, for some people, right? And, we don't need to dwell on this forever, but
it's that cost that goes up, right? But it's the perceived value of the education. And I think they even note that, some people in the elite class will buy it for that status, right? Like some schools already kind of have that, right? Where, I went to, Stanford or whatever it is, MIT, and like Oxford, all these different universities that have kind of that name brand, right? And you pay exorbitant tuition costs to go there. But now you're kind of in the club, right? And you're inside kind of an elite class. You have access to different opportunities. And like they see that growing more over the next 15 years, where there's this an unattainable level of education and club, and then there's kind of like everyone else who can't afford anything.
Yeah, you see that already. Yeah, you mentioned some of the elite educations. Like I went to Yale, and when my probation is done, I hopefully we'll be able to find a job. But no, if you look at some of the cost of post-secondary education in the United States, right? Like, never mind here, but in the States, you're talking over six figures for like a 4-year program. So you could argue it's already there. But I mean, this is talking about Canada, where the government subsidizes it. But go ahead.
And they said the Canadian dream, you kind of pointed out off the top, was, you follow the rules, you do the right things, right? And you can get ahead, or you can achieve whatever, an ordinary life in Canada and not any hardship or whatever. part of that is getting an education, and they're saying education will be out of reach, and maybe not as relevant, but also not as affordable either, right?
Yeah, well, they have the in the report they talk about the what's going to happen, and then they talk about how that'll affect policy and sort of what the implications are. So the implications for post-secondary education could become a stranded asset because, as people lose faith in it, there's less investment in it. It becomes more and more expensive, and it's sort of catch-22, right?
You know what? Like the post-secondary thing almost seems a little bit out of touch with the pace of current like technology developing. Like you lock yourself into a 4-year program, and 2 years into it, there's an entirely different industry that has evolved out of some new technology and a whole new skill set that's relevant. And like, what are they teaching you in post-secondary education? Like, I guess there's the theoretical kind of principles that would apply to a lot of stuff, but then like the practical side of it, which is what people need to actually produce value and get a job, like practically speaking, when they come out, you're just it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, I think this has been our argument for a little while, right? Unless you're in STEM, where you're actually learning, applied mathematics or whatever. And we had, when we talked to Jobst Landgrabe too, he kind of said the same thing. Kind of useless. I mean, I'm coming back around to the idea that maybe studying philosophy or something is good, but I don't think going for 4 years and getting a, undergrad and then continuing on, I don't think that's particularly useful. Maybe useful for society, but I don't do that in your own time, right? But learn the hard skills. And even with that, we're seeing, I can't remember the university, but where they're dropping admission standards to encourage more minorities to become doctors. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, it's just going to lead to distrust of minority doctors, right? Where you're like, oh, we don't have enough, people of color in the program to become, like, if you're a doctor, there's a threshold, right? And, you get your whatever doctor degree, your doctor papers, whether you get a C or an A, right? Like whether you pass, but that means like the threshold has to be high. And when you start dropping it, like, what are you? Oh, just ridiculous. So I hope that trend stops. I think it will. That's in the States. But in any case, post-secondary education, yeah. And Tom and Nick had a thing about that as well, right? A little blurb. Like the old way was like, get a job, like grow up, get an education, get a job, work hard, and that's just no longer valid. And that's kind of what this thing is saying. So what was their, I don't know if you have that.
There's this like, school, job, savings, retirement. It's kind of like a linear path, right? You just get your education, you get your skills that you can use in the job, you work the job because the job is just relevant the whole time, and then you make some savings, which, I mean, we've talked about that. It works in a previous era where your savings don't lose value. And then when you get to retirement, you have something, right?
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a different world now.
Yeah. So it's like soft skills are more important than the ability to learn. So anyways, we should move on instead of ragging on post-secondary education. The next one was housing. And I mean, this is one that's pretty,
are any of these ladders, or they're all snakes?
Well, that's the thing, right? It used to be a ladder. Now it seems like it's snakes. So in 2040, owning a home is not a realistic goal for many. Talks about people, intergenerational mortgages, multi-generational living, all that stuff. And again, we've talked about this, and I think, we're almost there. Or maybe we are there, right? For young people trying to buy a home. It's...
they key in on new homeowners. They said most new homeowners get help from family members, right? So that means they're either pooling resources or in all likelihood the family members already have houses, right?
Yeah.
So they're tapping into their equity. And then some take out intergenerational mortgages, so you're putting that burden on more generations and like longer time frame. And it says a growing percentage of homeowners also own rental properties. This is this theme of like the people who own the properties will help their kids get a property.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a family who can help you and you can't qualify for one of these multi-generational mortgages, then you're kind of, you're not going to be owning a home in 15 years.
In 15 years. And again, arguably we're almost there. I do know some young folks who are able to, have been able to buy homes, but like it's tough without, obviously ones that get help from their parents, great. But the ones that aren't, it's hard. You have to be very disciplined and buy a fixer upper, right? But yeah,
they don't talk about it here, but that would lead to almost like, just throwing your hands up, right? Like you're kind of apathetic, like,
yes,
oh, I can't get this house, so what's the point of even trying? And so I think the idea where they stated the kind of the Canadian dream or whatever off the intro of this, like, the idea that you can go get a house and you can aspire to this is good for society. I don't know. Would you agree with that? Everybody should have that as their...
We've talked about the sort of American dream before and its focus on materialism, and then sort of the difference in Europe, for example, where people don't really have even that aspiration, right? So they don't get depressed because it's not even in their mind, for a lot of them anyways, that they're going to buy a home, right? They just want to find a nice rental place and then they're going to stay there for a long time. So it's not as distressing, but for us, we certainly have that idea that, work hard, get an education, buy a house, have a family. And, so maybe for a while there's going to be a lot of angst until people realize like, it's just not going to happen. And, by the time this comes out there, we will have a new government elected. So, hey, what do you think, Brent? What's your bet? I'm saying conservative minority.
Yeah, I don't bet.
What are your thoughts, Brent?
I got a call from a conservative caller, whatever. I also got a call from the NDP guy. That was hilarious, man. I right away, I was on my computer and I pulled up ChatGPT and I was like, give me some questions for an NDP caller from a more conservative standpoint.
Yeah.
and right away I just started blasting them at him. He's like, let me write this down. I'm gonna come back with some answers. This is going straight to the NDP. I'm like, okay, good. And while you're looking for that info, how about this? Like just I think it was pretty quiet on the phone for a minute while he was looking up the answers.
Yeah.
But anyways, I got a call from a conservative guy and he's just like, can we count on your vote? And I just said, you know what? I voted already. And then he's like, "Wow, would you like a lawn sign or something?" I was like, "You know what? Is that really going to move the needle? Like for you? Like, do you think that like a lawn sign in my lawn or whatever is going to move the needle?" And he's like, "No, we got this." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like he sounded pretty confident about it.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, "Oh, I bleed blue." I'm like,
well, okay. Jagmeet Singh is still talking about becoming prime minister. So, just because somebody has confidence.
I know. I don't know if he just had everyone he calls is on the conservative caller list or something like that.
Yeah, obviously they're targeting folks who lean. Anyways, what's your prediction, Brent? Come on. I'm putting you on the spot.
I don't know. I'm going to go the opposite of you.
Polymarket says crushing liberal majority.
Yeah, I wouldn't say majority, but I think minority.
Liberal minority? Okay.
Yeah. But that way we have one of each in this podcast, and that way we don't have to do two podcasts. And really,
we'll see. Anyways, what prompted that was just the some of the housing promises on both sides, right? They're both talking about building 500,000 homes a year or something like that, and regardless of how you try to do it or target it, it's just not going to happen. Whether it's private sector or public sector. We just we've never built that many homes. Maybe 260,000, I think, was probably the most we've built in a year. So, like, come on, guys, pipe dreams. But anyways, that just gets back to the goal of owning a home, not realistic. And I don't think that's going to change. I think it's just going to get worse and worse, despite what any government will tell you, as inflation keeps eating away, keeps popping up the value of homes, and
that
not
goes
the value
into
of wages.
That goes into the premise in these reports from Horizons Canada, whatever, is that all of these problems can be solved by policy, right?
Yes.
And we can just make a housing policy that will, maybe not necessarily, but we can do this policy and that will improve this trend or alter the trend so that in 15 years we don't come to this conclusion, right? And I think what you're saying is, well, actually, there's some structural issues in the system, and unless you change those or move over to a different system, like we're not going to be able to change this trend.
No.
Right?
Not with the amount of debt in the system. Government needs to keep printing money, and I mean, been through this a million times, but well, this is why Trump's doing what he's doing, right? Shaking things up, because they see this coming as well. I mean, not just the goal of home ownership, but I mean that's one thing. But yeah, they realize you can't keep doing the same thing over and over, and so to your point, to think that changing some policies is going to help. Like, what are you going to do? Make it easier? I saw in Washington State, they are passing something to give down payments of up to $120,000 for Black people, essentially. And just like
what about
grants.
People who identify as Black people?
Yeah, no kidding. Just because, home ownership is hard and there's discrimination, et cetera. So, I mean, whatever you think about that, that's also not going to help, because now houses will cost that much more because there's that much more free money in the economy, and people are like, hey, I can spend up to X amount because I got this money from the government. So they just make things, stepping on rake after rake in the garden.
So, I love that analogy. All right, next one. 2040, people see inheritance as the only reliable way to get ahead. So intergenerational wealth. Society increasingly resembles an aristocracy.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little rich.
That seems like we're going, yeah. Wealth and status passed down the generations. Family background, especially owning property, divides the haves from the have-nots. So I don't like the look of that, like a society where there is this growing disparity between haves and have-nots. I think we all agree that that's a bad thing. But let's try and brainstorm a policy that could fix this, Mark.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, I don't even know if I agree with that premise, the haves and the have-nots. I don't know. There's always going to be poor people. And they're going to be for different reasons. So I think you create conditions for people to be able to not be a have-not, and become a have. But the actual goal of making everybody equal, that's actually pretty insidious and nefarious, I think. Right? It's all about, everything is about equality and equality of status.
And have-nots. Maybe we could say, the content and the envious, or
No, but it's just another, you can see some of the, some of the biases, I think, of the researchers, and they just accept that the fact that there's inequality in society is bad and shouldn't, the government, and that more than that the government should be the one to fix it. And,
yeah, and steal from one group to give to the other group.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, and the next one is social siloing. In 2040, people rarely mix with others of different socioeconomic status, and they talk about dating apps, job opportunities. Is that why we're not talking to
each other in the same room, or? That's why we're doing this podcast remotely.
So, I don't know about you. I don't really think about social status that much. And I don't think it's, I know it's not as big of a thing here. I don't know, maybe because I'm not, in the top 1% or whatever. of wealth and social, because it seems like that determines your social status. That I don't see it or think about it, but we don't really have that in Canada because we've had such a large middle class for such a long time.
So they're saying that this is going to be a reality for Canada in 15 years,
I guess.
like it is in other places.
Well, they're already calling it out, like, yeah, so social mobility and stuff. I'm like, what is that? Right? I've talked to people from other countries, and they're like, that's one of the things they like about Canada is that there's not really a lot of distinction between rich and poor, like socially, right? You know, even if you're wealthy, right? Like in Mexico, for example, if you're wealthy, you show it, you flaunt it, you dress like to the nines, you're always dressed up, you don't go in certain areas. People can tell when they see you. Whereas here, you know, you can have a millionaire in flip-flops and no big deal, right? So I don't know if they're just overdoing some of this social.
You mean a millionaire walking out of and in flip flops walking out of his starter home in a regular suburb?
Sorry, I'm talking about ready cash, not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, a decamillionaire or something.
Right. Okay.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next one, they talk about aspirations. Aspirations for social mobility among youth are at odds with expectations of immobility. So that's a little bit what we talked about earlier, right? Where people don't even, they hope for wealth and status, but they don't expect it. You know, what does that do to them?
Yeah. Even just I think going back for a second, like they say gated metaverses like real life offer few opportunities to meet people from different backgrounds. And that puts you in a weird, like, gated metaverses. Like we're now incorporating our digital, world. I don't know. I kind of want to bring that up. It's like that struck me. I was like, we're talking about the social aspect of online life. Like, imagine this report, 20 years ago, right? They would have never imagined like a generation living online and the ramifications of that. But that's serious too, right?
Well, I think that relates to sort of the last point, which is artificial intelligence, right? The value of human labor has shrunk because of artificial intelligence. It can do a lot of things well, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, there is a sort of a prevailing thought out there that as AI scoops up many, many jobs, all the sort of low wage jobs, but also a lot of white collar stuff, that you're just going to have a ton of people who are unemployed, and that the government is going to need to basically subsidize their income, right? Or just give them an income. So we'll have a society run by robots, except for a few people, except for plumbers and carpenters. Yay for the trades. But then, that goes back to like, okay, so if you can't work because you have no skills because AI is doing it all, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to sit at home and you're going to go online and live an alternate life in some alternate reality metaverse, right? Which some people do. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me it's so foreign to me. It's hard for me to comprehend that. But I mean, I would at least say, yeah,
that's this apathy, right? Indifference. Like, I don't really care about real life because, I'm satisfied with my virtual life. And, I'm in your boat too. I don't really understand that, but.
I get it a little bit because you see that now, right? People who do spend a lot of time online, whether it's video games or I think it's mostly video games, but then you have their social interactions and nobody knows how rich or poor you are. And it depends on how good a player you are. And, I don't know. I saw a thing the other day about some teen who died, and the parents thought like he was so lonely and had a pathetic life, whatever. And I think he was a World of Warcraft player. So he had like a whole bunch of guild members. Guild is like, you can be in a guild in World of Warcraft, just a group of people. And a lot of them actually came to his funeral from like all over the world. And the parents were just blown away. And, the moral of the story was like, hey, he found acceptance online and how wonderful is that? And like, okay, in this very isolated incident, but it's a wider, I don't know, a bigger point that, yeah, people are, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is the future and this is how people will interact later. But it's just, like you said, we're in the same virtual boat. So at odds from...
Yeah, and they make the point here under aspirations and expectations that if people in the next generation are frustrated and apathetic, well, there will only be a few who have strong drive to innovate and succeed in traditional terms. And I think part of that is, building the future, right? Like making things that improve people's lives further, right? So if you end up with, we can just keep the status quo, like then things don't go ahead, right? And we've talked about GDP has to grow. So either the debt has to grow or the productivity of the people have to grow. And if we're all just sitting on video games, like they call them video games, not video work.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Video productivity.
Yeah, the whole GDP thing. I mean, productivity will... Yeah, AI can destroy...
They didn't talk about that in this report.
What's that?
They didn't talk about productivity.
No. I mean, this is just, if this stuff happens, here's what could happen and what will happen. But that whole idea of AI being deflationary and that GDP doesn't really measure productivity; it measures spending. So it's not a great measure. But yeah, GDP could certainly drop. So yeah, what are their takeaways? Number one, the Canadian economy could shrink or become less predictable. And that
that's
wealth
a good prediction.
Concentrates. Yeah, no kidding. Wealth concentrates in a few hands. People's mental health may suffer, right, if they can't afford to, buy stuff for themselves. I mean, to me, it's almost seems like they're pointing towards UBI, saying like you have to do something so that, and you have to redistribute wealth. They're not saying that, but that's one conclusion you could draw. Workers.
Well, they do point policymakers to this report to say, if this report informs your policy you're working on, or directly or indirectly, please consider this. And
yeah. Another point: workers may seek greener pastures elsewhere. So it may become a less attractive destination for migrants, which is like, you think? You look at immigration numbers, and I mean, we're still bringing in immigrants, but I'm quite surprised that anybody from India, for example, would come here and expect anything.
This is subtle, Mark, but they put in here property ownership, and then like in kind of... brackets, and by extension, wealth may become even more concentrated if younger generations abandon the idea of buying a single family dwelling in favor of renting, right? And it's almost like them just, property ownership is wealth. They're like kind of synonymous, right?
Yes.
I don't know. I picked up on that. I was like, oh, that's interesting how they're acknowledging that there's value in a scarce thing. And what did they say earlier? They said, so in relation to people saving up, it says, it is hard for workers to save enough to start a business. And when I read that, I was like, yeah, because what are they saving in, right?
Yeah.
Like, you guys make the currency. These guys work hard and save. It's not like the value of their labor is not worth anything. It's just they're saving in something that you guys just keep printing.
That goes unsaid in this report, right?
But we can read between the lines.
Yeah, exactly. Next one. They talk about AI and people being out of work, etc. And then another one is people might find alternate ways to meet their basic needs. So I think this is the one you pointed out, and a few people have pointed this one out, right?
Yeah, what are we going to do to meet our basic needs?
So people may start to hunt, fish, and forage on public lands and waterways without reference to regulations. Small-scale agriculture could increase.
Yeah.
So, yeah, interesting.
We're going back to,
I don't know what we're going to hunt with.
Hunter-gatherer thing.
Yeah. Like, can you imagine? So they're talking about in 15 years, people are going to start like hunting and foraging and stuff because they can't.
What are they going to hunt with? There's not going to be any guns.
Exactly. And even, I don't know, I think bows are probably heavily regulated as well. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Small scale agriculture. Yeah.
This is to link the other report we're going to talk about in a minute is the what are they hunting and fishing? Because on this other report we talk about
biodiversity
disruptions that could biodiversity that is species becoming extinct and ecosystems collapsing. If they're projecting that the ecosystem's going to collapse, what exactly are we going to be hunting?
Yeah. Another one. Forms of person-to-person exchange of goods and services could become even more popular, reducing tax revenues and consumer safety. So
that's a reference to what? Barter or
hello,
Bitcoin?
Well, they're talking about barter, but
what do we pull up the Bitcoin white paper? What does the Bitcoin white paper say? The peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Peer-to-peer. Forms of person-to-person exchange of goods and services. There you go. So they're even predicting Bitcoin will be a thing. All right.
Yeah, maybe but it's going to reduce consumer safety. It's dangerous.
Right. Oh, yeah. You gotta tax that.
And then the last one they have under this point is that governments may come to seem irrelevant if they cannot enforce basic regulations or if people increasingly rely on grassroots solutions to meeting basic needs. Like,
what popped in your head there? What popped in your head for that one? I don't know. For some reason, grassroots solutions, I just thought church, like, people helping people.
Yeah.
I don't know. We don't need the government seems irrelevant when everyone's actually helping each other.
Yeah, exactly. Government should be irrelevant other than public safety, right? And property rights. But, I mean, what is,
you got the book behind you.
Which one?
You got the book, The Sovereign Individual, behind you.
Yes.
Where the government just becomes
increasingly
less and less relevant.
Yeah. So I don't know if they read that book, but probably. I mean, so this is not like a dumb group of people. I had a look and like whatever, for what it's worth, they're highly educated and they do a lot of research and a lot of reading and so forth when they put out these reports. So I'm sure that is in the back of their heads that, like this is what's happening. And yeah, you get sovereign individual. Another one would be the fourth turning. And so to me, everything they're talking about is emblematic of a fourth turning, of this period where there is change, right? From one epoch or whatever they call it to another. And, no doubt we're in a fourth turning. We're in a change. You see the massive disruption coming from the states, and it's going to have huge effects on society. And, is it still going to be like this in 15 years? Because most turnings or whatever, 20-year periods or so. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, people.
Well, and the sovereign individual thesis was that, the changing technology and the changing realities that it makes can make governments grow in size, right, to protect more people and to provide more services, or shrink in size and be more accountable to the people, right? And this is like with AI and with, mobility of, now you have digital technology that's ubiquitous everywhere, and you have digital monies that are not not sovereign to one country, right? It's like Bitcoin's an example of that, right? It's global, it's 24/7, 365 value, like peer-to-peer transfer, and no one can censor it. So like those reality, like the fact that exists just means the government has to treat people like customers, right? It has to be more accountable to the people in its jurisdiction. And that means that it's harder to do, and it forces the government into smaller and smaller sizes, right? Like, more local, more grassroots, more like small governments that are providing really kind of tailored services to the citizens within their jurisdiction. So I don't know. I love to see that play out, but I think that force can't be fought against, right? It's just a reality. Like, it's not like they're going to shut the internet off and stop things like Bitcoin, right?
I don't know if they can try.
Wait, my internet's not working. What's going on here?
This is Big Brother. No, I mean, you mentioned 1984. And again, when I look at both the Liberal and the Conservative platforms, they're both talking about spending a pantload of money. Liberals more, right? Massive deficits, like to make, it's so funny that Chrystia Freeland quit supposedly because she couldn't put forth the budget that Trudeau wanted with the $60 billion deficit. But now she's fully backing Mark Carney's platform of like, $200 billion deficit or whatever. It's like, come on, guys. Like, what a dog and pony show. But either way, the Conservatives are also saying, no, we're going to do a ton of spending and, the government is the solution, which is contrary to what you're wishing for here, what I'm wishing for as well, that we would have small government and not be involved in everything. And grassroots solutions, right? We talked about this a lot, right? Starting with the family and the church, you can make a huge difference in your neighborhood, in your city, in your society. Just a few determined individuals, right?
And it's worth it too, right? Like, we don't want to live in a world where there's disparity between rich and poor. We don't want to live in a world where we have to all rely on government services. Like, we can help people, like, one-on-one, and it's hard to do, but like, if we all do that, the world's a lot better place.
Well, and it's not like, I had this discussion in relation to church, but it's not like you have to, let's say you're wealthy, you have to help like thousands of people, right? You can just walk with one person, even if you're not wealthy. But it just, whether this is about wealth or just making a difference in the lives of somebody, if everybody just...
Well, they talk a lot about mental health and not just like financial health, right? Relationships. And
So, I mean, if everybody just took an interest in one other person, what kind of a difference would you have in society, right? Anyways, last point here, we talked about the post-secondary education. Last point they have is that people may reject systems they believe have failed them. You think? Some may blame the state. They may attack policies believed to favor older cohorts.
The other people are insane because they're trying something over and over again and it's not working. So.
Oh, man. So, like, this last point is just like, a lot of stuff that we've seen in our current election and what's happening in the States as well, right? The blame game, people rejecting systems, rejecting, I don't know, the CBC, for example. Like, if that's one thing that I've learned from this election cycle is that it's just the CBC is one huge pile of garbage. And maybe
that's all you've learned?
That's not all I've learned, but that's one thing I've learned. Like, just defund it. And if people think it's valuable, it'll survive on its own. But like, news media is propped up by the government in this country, but especially the CBC. And if you look at the amount of money the Liberals want to give CBC, like $600 million or something, it's one of the biggest line items in the budget. Like, just more than CSIS, more than, anything,
but that's
the army, anything else.
That's almost an indication of insecurity, right? Like, we can't stand on our own policies and our own beliefs, so therefore we need someone to indoctrinate the masses and convince them that this is all a good idea. I don't know.
Oh, man. Anyways. Okay, so that's, they have a conclusion. I don't know if we... Declining social mobility could create serious challenges for citizens and policymakers. Yeah, you think? So, could be trouble for the government if this happens. And I mean, I don't know. Do you see any reason to disagree with any of their possible scenarios here?
I don't think so. I would probably agree with most of them, and I would just question the idea that policy can fix everything and that the solution and the path forward is creative policy and more government and we can do better, right? There's never this admission that we're wrong, we don't know the future, we have to trust in God, we have to help our neighbor, we have to stop printing money. I don't know, like, it seems like things that things that are true will come to light eventually, right? But yeah, the government's just expert at kicking the can down the road. So
yeah. Okay. So, before we have more conclusions, maybe we look at one other report that this group has put out. So this one was last year, and it's called Disruptions on the Horizon 2024. And I found this one quite interesting. Are we going to
check how accurate their projections were? Now
well, I mean, 2024. It's not like it was 50 years ago.
Yeah,
but they have they've mapped like 35 possible disruptions and the effects that it could have. So we're not going to go super in depth, but there is a little chart in here, and it's got impact. So it's a graph. Sorry, impact is the vertical axis, likelihood is the horizontal axis. So if something is like very likely and very impactful, it'll be sort of the top right of the graph. And if something is not very likely and not very impactful, it'll be at the bottom left of the graph. So
and then they've rated them based on the likelihood of when they would occur too, right? There's like the different shapes represent 3 to 6 years or whatever, 3 to 5 years, 6 to 8 years, and then whatever 8 plus or
maybe I can share it here. Let me see if I can.
Oh, I see it. So we can link to it. People can go check it out. Oh, this is real.
There we go. Here's the graph,
folks. You're gonna have to watch this one.
Yeah. Well, for the viewer that does watch. But yeah, here's the chart, right? So something that would have a huge impact, but is not very likely. There's my likelihood. Is World War breaks out. And it's like, interesting. But these are all like possible things that they've thought about. So it's like, are we on the verge of World War? I don't know, maybe. I think the Ukraine war was already going on when they put this out, so maybe that's not so prescient. But interesting, the high likelihood, the highest likelihood and the highest impact is over here. Within the next 3 to 5 years, people cannot tell what is true and what is not. And you know what? I couldn't agree more. Which goes back to my point about the CBC.
That's a disruption. I don't know. There's so much out there that is just fake content. I was actually just reading something yesterday. I think it was fake, but it was just the amount of wealth or the amount of money that was stolen. I think it was in the U.S., but over just like these callers, right, that just scam you. And it was like billions of dollars. And a lot of it is targeting seniors, like a big percentage of it.
Yeah.
And I think people maybe who have grown up in a technology era and it's just kind of, they're part of their life. Like, I think you mentioned this before, like just dismiss it. Like any phone call, I don't even pick up the phone. Any email, like I don't even open it. But previous generation, if someone calls you on the phone, you got to pick it up, right? Yeah. And if they sound nice, like you got to talk to them. So they're huge victims in all of this, and they don't know what's true and what's not, right? So that's just one example of this. It's happening now, right?
Yeah, and I mean it relates to technology and trust in society, right? We're moving from a high trust society in the West and Canada to low trust. And I think we're already probably low trust on the technology side of things. Like most, seniors, maybe not as much, but most people who are a little bit tech savvy understand like there's scams and, get your ears out, ears up when you have these calls or the emails.
As a Christian, when you read this, it's like, well, nothing new here, guys. People cannot tell what is true, what is not. That was Pilate, right? We just went through Easter. It's like, what is truth,
Yeah.
Like, well, yeah, of course people can't tell what is truth because Jesus Christ is the truth, And if you don't acknowledge that, then, well, there's the starting point.
Well, yeah, that's exactly. When you deny that, then you have no signpost, nothing to anchor to, right? For what is true and what is not.
Yeah.
'Cause
Trying to teach your kids like wisdom, right? We're reading through the Proverbs and it's like, well, the core thing here is really that you discern between good and evil, right and wrong, right? What is truth and what is false, and where do you actually get that signpost is the word, right? So I mean, I guess if you Google like the Bible and you pull up an AI version of the Bible that's been modified, you might not get the truth. But if you just pick up a book, like you should, until we have book burnings throughout the world on all the Bibles, and it's a digital Bible that can be manipulated, like we still have the truth. So,
yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll stop sharing this thing in a minute, but they talk about biodiversity. Yeah, some environmental stuff there. Healthcare systems collapsing. Yeah, the green ones. Billionaires run the world. Cyber attacks disable critical infrastructure. Artificial intelligence runs wild. Mental health in crisis. Downward social mobility. All that stuff. I mean, yeah, you can look it up yourself if you're interested in it. But it is interesting that all these things are on the horizon, and that. And for the most part, I agree about the trust thing, all the different things that could happen. So I guess the question is like, what do you do? And I think you hinted at it, because like you state this like it's matter of fact, right? You're working through Proverbs with your children. So well, it's a different paradigm, right? So you're a father, you're at home with your children, and you have a wife, so you have a nuclear family, and you're interested in your children's well-being. You're reading to them from a book and teaching them stuff, and then what's more, you're reading to them from the Bible and teaching them stuff. So, you could say moral lessons for the non-Christian, but, for the Christian, like you're actually teaching them how to thrive and survive in this world. And it's like, what do you do, right? Well, there's one thing you do is go back to the word. If we confess that the Bible is truth, that Jesus is the truth, then like that's our starting point. And that can, what are the skills that children need to have, and how do you prepare for go back to the Bible, right?
Yeah, and that frames stewardship too, right? Because when we were looking at the previous report about all these 15-year projections for what could happen in the bleak society we live in, hey, we want a world of equality. There's no haves and have-nots. Like this puts your mind. What does God want for the world? Like, what is his ideal world, right? Like this paints a picture of what they think the ideal world would be, right? One where there's social mobility and they may have their reasons, but they don't really specify their reasons, right? But as Christians, we can kind of, we take the word, and that paints a picture of the reality that Christ wants to see, that God wants to see, right? And we can almost rewrite this whole report from that perspective. Like,
and it offers hope. I mean, not for everybody, but where can you go to? Because it talks about isolation, right? And that people of different social and economic classes don't mix. Well, where can you go where that happens? At church, right? There's all people of all different. It's
an equalizer, right?
Yeah.
Like we are all sinful. Okay, well, doesn't matter how much money you have or make or don't have or don't make, right? Like we're all sinful. We're all equally deserving of punishment. Well, where do you see that in society, such a great equalizing force? And it's not just in this life, it's eternally equalizing, right?
Yeah.
It's like we all deserve it. Okay, eternally. Whoa. Now we're talking.
Well, and then all of a sudden the whole haves and have-nots isn't as important. I mean, yeah, we should strive to defend, Paul or James talks about this, the widow and the orphan. So people who are isolated, people who are poor, we should strive to defend them and take care of them. But it's not, becoming wealthy isn't, in the context of eternity. What does that matter? So for 80 years out of infinity years, you were richer than everybody else. Like, what does that matter, right? It doesn't.
Yeah, our citizenship is not here, right? It's somewhere else. And yeah, when you think about it like that, well, we're just here to serve, right? Like, we're not here to obtain some sort of status. Like, what does that mean in 100 years from now when you're dead? Like, it really, really doesn't. So,
yeah. But yeah, at the same time, steward what we have, right? Steward what we're given. So, I mean, it talks, I mean, we're both sort of in the real estate space, and, having they equate, the report writers equate home ownership or property ownership with wealth. And I think that's correct, because it's an asset. It's not just income, it's an actual asset. So try to get assets, because as you can see, they're going to become more and more scarce unless something changes. And, I don't think anything is going to change. Everything the government does makes things worse in this current context. So the price of assets will continue to increase. And if you want to be responsible.
I think the calling here is, well, now that you know this and you are a Christian, you are stewarding your wealth. Well, take action to actually do that, and do it so that when these predictions or whatever trends, in 15 years come to reality, you can be there to help the people who don't have, or help the people who are, mentally ill or living in some cyber world, or, we don't have ecosystems, biodiversity, ecosystems collapse. But you have the resources, you have, the stability, the support network to be able to go out and serve those people, right? You can do a lot.
Yeah, and if you have children, you teach them to be that person as well, right? Don't just be self-sufficient, be sufficient for more than yourself, for others as well. Because if this is where we're heading, then there's work to be done, right?
Yeah, this is the most positive episode. We successfully took a negative future prediction from the government and turned it into a positive message. Go out, do what you can.
Yeah, serve. Again, it's the help isn't going to come from, I don't want to say above. I mean, the lower version of above, meaning the government, right? Help's not going to come from the government, right? It's only going to come from people. And like they said, grassroots, right? Imagine people doing grassroots stuff. Like, that's where the solutions are going to come from, as they always do. So, I want to just address, I don't know, you have any further thoughts on that, Brent?
No, I'm good. Okay.
So hopefully people enjoyed that. Just a note on the podcast itself and frequency and so forth. If you're been a regular listener, you may notice that the frequency is changing, and we're going to change things up a little bit. We probably won't be doing weekly episodes with both of us, and we're going to try and keep some content coming out. I think Brent has already released one or two short ones as we go, but just different circumstances. It just means it's not possible for us to get together every week and do a full-on podcast with all the research that it entails as well. So, we're still here, we're still doing it, and, things can change, but that's where we're at for now. So hopefully nobody's too disappointed. I'm sure they're not, Brent.
Oh, no, that was well said, Mark. I think just keep our audience up to date with what's going on, and we'll keep doing our best to try and put stuff out.
Yes, sir. Well, thanks, folks. Until next time.
Steward your wealth wisely. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Two Stewards Show. If you like my voice better, click subscribe.
If you like my voice better, click share.
If you like both, give us a 5-star rating.
To learn more about the show, head on over to twostewards.ca and explore our free resources. To interact with the show, feel free to reach out at hello@twostewards.ca.
We will see you in the next episode. In the meantime, steward your wealth wisely.
Nailed it.